Hello, I'm Jonathan from Boom Instructor Training, and on this video I'll be exploring targeted practice in preparation for your ADI Part 2 test. I've helped many PDIs pass their Part 2 test over the last 20 years, so I'm talking with a lot of experience. Where many PDIs go wrong when self-practicing is they practice randomly. It's often a random drive out, nowhere in particular, without any specific focus. Or a PDI might think, I'll just practice my driving when I drive to the supermarket, or when I drop the kids off at school, or on my way to work. There isn't much benefit in doing this because it lacks focus. Before trying to practice and improve your driving, you need to understand what a driving fault is for all of the categories on the DL25 driving test report form. Because once you understand how and why driving faults are recorded, then you are in a much better position to avoid making driving faults when you drive. The easiest way to understand this is to use my Part 2 video tutorials, because I explain and demonstrate best driving practice for all the categories on the DL25, and you will learn how to avoid making faults when you drive. Once you understand how and why faults are recorded, then you can go out and get some self-practice to improve your driving standard. And you should practice in a targeted way. On your Part 2 test, you will be directed around a variety of different roads, and your self-practice sessions should reflect this. On your Part 2 test, you will drive in residential areas, town or city environments, higher speed roads including dual carriageways and motorways, possibly in rural areas, driving on country lanes, and you'll also need to be confident with all of the manoeuvres and the emergency stop. So, self-practice session number 1. Use urban residential areas and practice your basic car control skills and basic driving techniques, and make sure you're not making any driving faults. So initially you'd have targeted practice for control, accelerator, clutch, gears, foot brake, parking brake, steering, and precautions and ancillary controls. And you'd simply make sure you are using these controls as I explain and demonstrate throughout the Part 2 video tutorials. You'd also get some targeted practice for moving off safely and under control, for position, normal stop, position, normal driving, use of mirrors and signals, junctions, judgment, meeting and crossing, and clearance and pedestrian crossings. Quite simply, you should put into practice what I demonstrate on the video tutorials, making sure you are driving the same way as I've demonstrated. You'd probably spend about 45 minutes practicing these basic driving skills. Self-practice session number 2, you would use different practice areas such as a town or city environment. Ideally, use the town or city nearest to the driving test centre where you will be taking your Part 2 test. So this is targeted practice in a town or city environment, focusing on progress, response to signs and signals, judgment, overtaking, lane discipline, awareness and planning, following distance, use of speed, as well as everything you covered in practice session number 1. And you'd spend about 45 to 60 minutes practicing this. And again, you would put into practice the advice I've given you on the Part 2 video tutorials. By doing this, you can easily self-improve your own driving. Practice session 3 could be targeted practice on higher speed roads such as dual carriageways and motorways. Spend 45 to 60 minutes practicing and self-improving your driving and making any necessary improvements based on the advice and guidance I've given you throughout the video tutorials. Practice session 4, practice all of the maneuvers and the show me tell me questions and the controlled stop. Practice session 5 could be driving on country lanes, and you might want to spend 30 to 40 minutes practicing this, and this is well thought out, targeted practice. When you go out to self-practice, make sure you've planned a route and you know where you are going. Use a sat-nav because this will be helpful. You need to go out for this targeted practice knowing exactly the route you will be taking and making sure the roads you use reflect what you intend to practice. So spend some time in advance planning out the route you will be using when you go out for this targeted practice. And you need to get used to doing this because you will have to do this when you're teaching pupils. If you're teaching a pupil, for example, how to deal with roundabouts, then you will need to plan out a suitable practice area for this. So it's a good idea to start doing this now when you're self-practicing for your Part 2 test, because this will benefit you when you start teaching pupils. Using Google Maps is a great way to plan out practice areas and routes for this targeted self-practice. Also, self-reflect after each practice session. Ask yourself what went well, what didn't go well, what can I do to improve? For example, imagine you were driving in a town or city environment and you got a bit confused with lane discipline on a multiple lane roundabout and you lost focus on which lane you should select. You ended up straddling the lanes and you missed the exit you intended to take. When you get home, open up Google Maps and take a look at that particular roundabout where you got confused. Go to map type, select satellite, then remove labels. This way you will see the road markings clearly. And then study the lane options. Look at the lane markings and identify the correct lane you should have used. And then the next time you go out to practice, go back to the same roundabout and try again. This is targeting your practice specifically on areas of your driving where there is room for improvement. If, for example, you were practicing driving on country lanes and you found yourself braking harshly on approach to a bend, ask yourself, why did I brake harshly? And what can I do differently next time to avoid this happening? And then practice again and make an improvement to your driving. When you go out for these 45 to 60 minute targeted practice sessions, pull over and have a few breaks when it's safe and convenient to do so. Don't feel you have to be driving continually. When you pull up, spend 5 minutes reflecting on the drive so far. Ask yourself, do I feel comfortable with the drive so far? Could I have done anything better? If so, what can I do to improve this? These are good self-reflective questions. It is important when you are self-practicing to be self-critical. Be honest with yourself, and if you get something wrong or get confused about something, don't get annoyed with yourself. Just use this as a learning opportunity and reflect on what happened. Then have a think what you would do differently next time to improve your driving. By methodically going through this self-practice process, you can easily prepare yourself for the ADI Part 2 test, and using my Part 2 video tutorials will be a big help. There is a link in the top comment to my website where you will find these Part 2 video tutorials. I hope you found this interesting. Let me know in the comments if you did. Please like and subscribe, I would really appreciate this. And remember, in the future when you're teaching pupils, keep it simple and enjoy it.